everybody. My name is Jessie. I am loving the fact that I have Mr. YB, but also Rob. We met on the Clubhouse streets years ago. It's crazy to think that we're like almost 3 years away from all that was going on. And I reached out to Rob because he is so great at what he does. And he likes to talk to people about how to use LinkedIn for small businesses. And I was like, hey, is there a way that we can have a conversation on LinkedIn or on YouTube that can be helpful for other entrepreneurs? So thank you for being a yes and agreeing to do this today.
Well, thank you. I love to talk. For those who understand the disc, I'm a very high I, which means I bring the energy. I'm very people oriented. I'm a recovering people pleaser, though. So,
Um,
if I get people to ask me to come, depending on my schedule, I make time. But for someone like yourself, I definitely want to make time. You and I were actually connected through our coach, Glenn P. Brooks Jr. And
mhm.
so you family. So like whenever anytime family reach out, as long as as long as they're the right type of family, because sometimes some family members you don't want to deal with. So, but
Yes.
I see how you're moving. I see how you're impacting small businesses, and I just want to be able to add value to your ecosystem. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, no problem. And I thought this would be a great conversation because often everyone only talks about the Instagrams and the TikToks of the world. Yes, they
Mhm.
do help certain businesses. And however, whenever I would be in spaces, I'm like, I love using LinkedIn for my business. I think it's very helpful. And people are like, but LinkedIn, are you sure? So I would love for you to share first before we dive into the conversation a little bit about yourself so that people know who Rob is or who is YB.
Yeah, absolutely. Two words describe me: authentic networker. Authentic networker. I've learned over the years the importance of networking, but the importance of being authentic. Some people might say, well, if you're networking, isn't it authentic? No, because some people network for what they can get, and then
Mm,
authentic networkers focus on what they can give. I'm a
yeah.
native of the Bronx, New York. I grew up in a single parent home. My dad was actually murdered when I was 2. I share
Mm,
that everywhere I go, not to get any sympathy, but just to let people know that the person that they're listening to is a real one. From
mhm.
time to time, I might switch into using my slang from the hood, and then also know how to communicate as well. I'm a graduate of
Yeah.
the greatest HBCU in the nation. People
Mhm.
can argue with me all they want to, but Virginia Union is that one.
Mhm.
And married to a beautiful woman. We've been married going on 19 years, 2 beautiful daughters. And I am the founder of the Collaboration Creates Currency movement, which is based on my second book, Collaboration Creates Currency. And so, I'm excited about promoting LinkedIn because in many circles I'm known as the LinkedIn locksmith
Mhm.
because of my ability to unlock the power of LinkedIn for my clients, which are mainly business owners, small business owners, some authors, many professional speakers, but those are more revenue generators versus career seekers.
Awesome. And I like the fact that you're very authentic about who you are. And I would love to know, like, considering you get to show up however you choose to show up, what made you choose LinkedIn? I mean, I know you do have some other platforms, but you put most of your effort and attention into LinkedIn. So, what made you choose to use LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn actually reminded me recently that I've been on the platform for 17 years. So I joined LinkedIn in 2007. I was working for a nonprofit organization in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm currently located, and I began to use it as a CRM. Every
Mm,
time I went out into the community to network on behalf of this organization, I would meet people, get business cards, and I began to use LinkedIn. I discovered LinkedIn. Somebody shared it with me or may have invited me to their network. And what I realized was that, we collect a bunch of business cards, but how well do we follow up? And at that time, I didn't really have a structured CRM. And
mhm,
so every time I met someone in the community, I would invite them into my LinkedIn network. And so over the years, I would build with that because I was in a fundraising capacity as well as in recruiting individuals to be a part of a volunteer speakers bureau to go into the schools that I was working with. And so LinkedIn was the best place for me to be because of the professional nature of the community. In 2012, I was laid off from a different nonprofit organization, and that's what prompted me to launch my first official business, my first traditional business, which is called YB Connects.
Mm.
And as a result of being active and consistent on the platform, I began to attract job seekers who wanted to learn how to use LinkedIn as a tool for attracting their next career opportunity. And that was something that that just came to me. The relationships that I had built, people saw that I was active on the platform, so they felt comfortable approaching me and asking me if I could help them. In 2016, I transitioned from working with job seekers and began to work primarily with revenue generators because of the influence of being a part of Eric Thomas's community, Breathe University.
Mm.
And I leveled up in a major way because I started to attract professional speakers, authors who wanted to learn how to use LinkedIn. I became the LinkedIn locksmith in that community. Shout out to David Shands. And then from there, just begin to continue to build that brand. And so that's why I spend a tremendous amount of time. Probably going to be a lot more time now because of where we're striving to go with this collaboration creates currency movement and this initiative that I call authentic networking. And so that's why I play on LinkedIn, because it's simple to use. It's the culture of the platform is already set. It's not a lot of nonsense that people are putting on the platform, and it helps people to make professional connections that lead to greater revenue or stronger relationships that lead to mutual benefit.
And I like that you shared the transition from job seekers, because I feel like that sometimes can be the stereotype that, oh, LinkedIn is only where you worry about your job. And I've
Hmm.
even noticed that there's been a shift on LinkedIn even since the pandemic, because I think people really felt that it was only for job.
Yeah.
And no one was really showing their personality. However, I've started to see more of this shift of like, people showing their personality, creating their own personal brand. Even though they have a corporate job, they're still
Mhm.
sharing and showing up with their own professional brand. um, do you think that people still have this? I mean, over the last 4 years, I've noticed that it become this change. Do you find that that can sometimes be a barrier with people actually getting on the platform? Is that they associate it only to employment and things of that nature?
Yeah, that's the biggest barrier. I have a framework that I promote called the 3M framework, and it focuses on mindset, methodology, and mentorship. And so the mindset that I promote is seeing LinkedIn as a public relations tool. So whether you work for an organization or you own your own business, you still have to think about how do you engage with the public. Now, there are some careers that you don't engage with the public, right? You come in, you do your work, you go home. But when you start to develop your personal brand is essentially a business. And so you have to begin to understand, how do I engage the public, whether it's the internal public of the organization you work in and from a 9 to 5 perspective, or it's the external public of a person who owns a business that's responsible for promoting the value of that organization and building trust and building credibility in the marketplace. So yes, there's been a tremendous shift, and I think a lot of it is because of folks like yourself and myself who promote LinkedIn within our communities. We're using it, we're getting results. There are people that the number one thing that I hear from people when I'm starting to collaborate is that they're intimidated by LinkedIn. There's this intimidation factor. And then when I say, well, what makes you intimidated? They're like, oh, LinkedIn is for professionals. And so then I pause and I say, okay, well, do you know what the opposite of a professional is? And they're like, no, what? It's like, it's a rookie. So if you say that LinkedIn is for professionals and you intimidated because you thinking that it's for professionals, what does that make you? And a lot of it is a confidence and a clarity thing. So until they get in, but at the end of the day, if somebody's working a full-time job, there's another level of intimidation because some people are like, well, I don't want my coworkers to be in my business.
Mm.
And that's a fair statement. But I tell people, if you good, they're gonna find out.
Yeah.
You can't keep something that's good quiet for too long. So it would be in your best interest to at least disclose, hey, I've got some other side interests. You don't have to,
Yeah.
but if you're going to build a personal brand, that personal brand may end up eclipsing what you're doing in your 9 to 5, and so they're gonna find out. And social media, you're not gonna be hard to find, unless you
Yeah.
unless you do something in a total different country or something like that where they don't have access to you.
And I think too, like I would assume, granted I'm far removed from like actually working in corporate, I would almost assume that people expect that other people have things on the side anyway. Like
Mhm.
this day and age, I think it's almost unfair unless you're paying someone a crap load of money,
Right,
which is not the average job, just based off of what salaries are, in different cities and states. Most people are going to have multiple things, even if it's something for fun, like the TikTok influencer things, like it's just something for fun. Or it might
right.
be them coaching someone or supporting other people. Like, unless you have a like super strict policy because you're
Mhm.
paying someone extremely well, I would almost naturally think that someone has something on the side that they're doing for
Mhm.
fun or just to bring in some extra money just because of how expensive things are. So to have that as a
Mhm.
fear, I think that that's a disservice to like what someone's really passionate about. And then two, what I find that is that so many people have this perspective that is either or. Like I think
Right.
that's why a lot of people just jumped out and quit their jobs, because they're like, oh, I can't have both. And I think that, and then some people had to go back because they didn't know how hard it was going to be in entrepreneurship. And I think that the more open and transparent we can be, one, it creates a more realistic approach for anyone that is an entrepreneur to understand that you do possibly need multiple streams of income. If you're single or if you have a partner, they have to help with supporting to offset some of that loss that you're going to
Mhm.
be having. But I
Right.
think that because people thought it was either or and they're not trying to show up, they kind of like YOLO it. Compared to gradually building up a brand and building up a rapport. And the thing is, too, is that your company may even find value in what you're doing anyway. And that can lead you to more opportunities compared to doing it underneath the radar.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There are many industries though that are very much prohibitive, right? So if you think about financial services, right, there are certain
Mm,
industries that have certain standards. The compliance is there, so you have to be very, very careful with how you do
yeah.
it. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's worth having a conversation. But a lot of times, if you start talking about one thing, then it opens up to another thing, and then it's like, well, now I gotta now I'm at a crossroad because now you put me in a position where I have to make a decision. And so you're right. I mean, we have to have multiple streams of income or other ways to create revenue because in this day
Yeah.
and age with everything that's going on, it's
Yeah.
like, listen, people they're saying people that's making 6 figures is broke. I'm like, man, that's crazy. You telling me I got to be a millionaire just to live in these streets? That's
I
crazy.
know.
But I'll tell people that even if it's not for anything revenue generation perspective,
Mhm.
we should always focus on building our network.
Yes. Yeah.
And the reason why is because the worst time to reach out to people and build a network is when you're in crisis.
Yeah.
Is when you're in crisis. So we should be building connections and having conversations with people every single day, every single week to establish the relationship. You never know when you're going to need someone, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're the type of person who is like, oh, I don't need anybody, and then they tell you we no longer need your services at the job, now you're struggling because you don't have anybody to reach out to. You can, it's kind of like when people in their family die and they don't have life insurance, so now they like GoFundMe me. Now you
Yeah.
wouldn't need GoFundMe if you was building your savings or if you had an insurance policy that allow for you to say, yeah, Joe Blow died, we're going to tap into the insurance. So building a network is like having an insurance policy,
Yeah.
whether it's when you need to transition to your next career or, hey, you might need some guidance. Or maybe, like, for example, one of the things that my wife told me when we first got married was that she had her own personal board of advisors.
Mm.
which I thought was phenomenal. I'm like, so on a tool like on a platform like LinkedIn, imagine being able to connect with professionals from various backgrounds, various experiences, and having your own personal board of advisors
Yeah.
who can speak into your situation, whatever gaps you might have. They might be strong at. They might say, "Have you considered this? You know,
Mm.
you might want to think about this." Or here is someone that I think can help you. Let me make the introduction,
Yeah.
right? So even if you're not going to use the platform to generate revenue, even if you're not using it to build a business, you should be using the platform to build your personal board of advisors. These are people who can be sponsors for you, meaning they can help you get into certain rooms. They could be people who can speak highly of you when they're in the room and you're not in the room. So even as a professional in your corporate situation, using this as a way to grow your social network, your social capital, your brand, and then begin to collaborate, because when you do need to make a transition, those people you've been building with, they're going to already know, and they're like, okay, sure, Jesse would love to help you in this space. YB would love to help you, man. I see the work you're doing. I'm excited. What can I do to help you? And
Yeah.
that's because you built that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah, and that ties in perfectly to like the first question I have down is why should small business owners prioritize LinkedIn for their marketing efforts?
Yeah, so there's three things that I think about, or tell my clients that are business owners. Number one is visibility. If people don't know you exist, they can't pay you, right? If you don't, they don't know you exist. So they're gonna go with the person that they see. And so LinkedIn allows you to increase your visibility so that you can get in front of the people that are looking for you, but that they don't know you exist. So that's the first reason why small businesses should definitely be on LinkedIn. The second one is credibility. You could be all visible you want to, but if there's no trust there, if I go in your profile, I don't see any information that answers the questions that I need answered to make a decision on selecting you as a vendor, I'm not approaching you.
Yeah.
If you say you're good, but nobody else in your network is vouching for you, I'm not going to put my money in a place that may not bring me a return on my investment. I need to know who else have you helped. Don't practice on me. You know, if you say you're an expert in this, but you don't have anybody that has spoke to the expert nature of your work, I'm not gambling on you,
Yeah.
right? So LinkedIn allows for you to have that credibility, and then lastly, it's the profitability, right? The more visible you become, the more credible you become, you start to attract people who have a need for your product or service or want to build with you. Then you can convert those LinkedIn connections into clients, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why you should be on LinkedIn. And the biggest thing is that you're actually, it's possible for you to be found easier on LinkedIn than if you just have a website, right?
Mm.
So if I just have a website and no one knows I exist, they're not checking for me. But if I'm on LinkedIn and I'm providing valuable content, and that content then catches the attention of the person who may want to work with me, but because you liked it, the person in your network sees me, and now they start connecting with me, and then they can click on my link to my website to learn more. One of the
Yeah.
strategies that I've started doing, and you've seen this already firsthand, is when I'm communicating with people in the inbox, I put my link at the bottom,
Yeah.
somewhat like a signature. So LinkedIn doesn't have it set up where you can drop a signature. So I'm like, listen, in emails we have signatures, so I'm going to do that in my inbox. Why? Because I want forever the impression of YB Connects to stay
Yeah.
in front of the people that I'm talking to. Why? You may not need me now, but in 2 months, when you go and you look at my website, you might see something saying, man, I didn't even know this existed. I'm so
Mhm.
glad I clicked on the link, right? And so it's the visibility, it's the credibility, and then it's the profitability as to why business owners should be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I love how you and when I saw the signature, I thought it was just something that was in it, but I love that idea. I will likely use that too.
Go ahead and
So,
duplicate. Got it. Yep.
but the thing is, I always tell people too about social media. Whoever you serve might not really be on Instagram. Like
Mm-hmm.
when they're on Instagram, they're looking at family photos and
Mm-hmm.
chats and funny things. But
Yeah.
for like their business and when they're really searching for people, that's not where they go. Like even
Mhm.
for my event planning company, when I'm looking for new partners and vendors, I don't go to Instagram to find them because most people don't use the right hashtags. They're not optimizing their pages anyway. So if I want to
Mhm.
waste time, I go onto social media. If I want to find someone intentionally, I know where to go to find that information. So
Right.
whatever someone else that might be watching this live or recording, depending on the type of business you have, your person probably isn't even managing their Instagram. Like I
Yeah.
had shared years ago, I work out of a co-work space most days, and
Mhm.
majority of the people in my co-work space, they don't have a personal Instagram account. And for a lot of the people in my events, they're like, "Oh, I want high net worth people," and da 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 da. And I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna let you know they're not on Instagram looking for people. Like maybe if they're a celebrity, but if you're trying to get the person that's X, Y, and Z that makes X, Y, and Z, they have someone that's managing it, or they're not even on it because it's distracting them from the things in which they need to do. So
Mhm.
I think that with LinkedIn, depending on the type of business you have, that's something to be present to. Is your person actually consuming more content and information on this platform, and what type of content you can put out there that's going to actually get their attention compared to just
Yes.
trying to rinse and repeat what you do on Instagram and then put that on LinkedIn. That's not the same.
Yeah, 1000%. And the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is that whether someone is building a business or not, they have the ability to become a thought leader. Right. So
Yes.
now, like you, to your point, you can start to engage thought leaders. Now, you may not be able to get in front of them. It's funny. I posted a picture of 50 Cent and Tyler Perry. And the picture talked about how 50 Cent approached Tyler Perry about doing some collaboration. So you know me, the moment I hear collaboration, I'm like, oh, that's my word, right? But what's happening is because 50 Cent is getting into the production space, right?
Yeah.
He went down to Alabama and got his own studio area. Tyler's already doing it. He's approaching Tyler and say, "Hey, will you mentor me?" And he agreed to mentor. And I put out there, this is what collaboration creates currency look like. And so that was the
Yeah.
initial post. But then I built upon it, and I asked a question: who is the one person that you would want to collaborate with if you could meet them?
Mm.
Because I wanted people to think like in this ecosystem, we're literally 3 connections away from anybody in the world. You
Yeah.
used to hear 6 degrees of separation. Now it's 3 degrees of separation. Real talk. I'm in a phenomenal community, right? It's called Black Executive Men, right? Phenomenal community. And I put that question in the community, and one person said he'd want to meet Rich Paul. And so, for those who don't know who Rich Paul is the agent for LeBron James
Mhm.
and for several other athletes, including Bronny James, which is LeBron's son, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. That's 3 degrees. It's like, okay, well, who does Rich know that maybe or that knows somebody? It's 3 degrees of separation. Now you can find a way if you can get in the room where Rich is speaking, then you have the ability to possibly make a 1 degree connection.
Yeah.
Same with Robert Smith. Robert Smith is one of my alpha brothers, right? And that
Mhm.
don't mean that just because we're in the same fraternity that I have instant access, but because of the fraternity, I now have access to a database where I can
Okay.
now reach out to brothers and say, listen, I'm looking to get connected to Brother Smith. What's the best way for me to do it? Now, I could do a cold call, but cold call is like a 5% chance. So I
Yeah.
want to increase my chances. So if I can find somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, boom, I get connected to Robert Smith.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Hmm.
Awesome. So here's where now that we know like why they should, I
Hmm.
would love to hear from you. What are some things that can help them with creating a compelling profile? Because I think that that's something that can be a disconnect is
Yeah.
not understanding how to actually create a profile that gets people to want to lean in.
Yeah. So 5 components that's important to building a profile. Number one, make sure you have a professional headshot. I can't tell you how many times I go on people's profiles. They got a selfie. They got a picture with their wife, they holding their kids. I'm like, listen, this is about you. All right, this don't have nothing to do with your family. All right, and some people are like, well, my wife is a part of my business. That's cool, but we're promoting you. This is your time to shine. Right? You can do that through your company page, but this is your personal profile. So having a professional headshot. Since I've launched my public relations firm, one of the things that I do is I connect several of my clients to photographers so that they can get professional headshots done. We're doing events around the country that's allowing people to learn how to network while getting their professional headshots. Why? Because that's a need. So number one is making sure you have a professional headshot, and preferably not with your phone. Don't. That's not professional. Go to see if you are low in terms of your budget. Go to Sears. They'll hook you up. Right? Go get you about 3, 4 different deals. Or if you want to level up, go find your photographer in your area. Go get your professional headshots done. That's number one. Number two is making sure you have a banner that promotes the value that you bring to the marketplace. Right? A banner is like a billboard in your city. So like here, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. There's 2 major highways that run through Richmond. You got I-95, you got 64. Along each highway are billboards. And what's the purpose of a billboard? To promote a specific message. So if I come to your LinkedIn profile right now and I looked at your profile and I look at your banner, will it give me a visual of what you bring to the marketplace? If the answer is no, then you need to level up in that area, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. But what you want to do is you don't want to give words that the people are not even thinking about. Like, so if I look at a picture, it shouldn't be an abstract, right? If you look at it, you say, "Oh man, I see a shark and I see some whales." I'm like, that's not what's supposed to be shown in my picture. Well, you might need to fix that, because the marketplace is going to be confused, and confused people don't buy. Okay, so that's number two. Number three is your headline or your header. All right, making sure that your headline speaks to the value that you bring to the marketplace. You'll hear me say value so many times, it's not gonna be funny, because nobody cares about your title unless you're using LinkedIn to find a job.
Mm.
So if you're using LinkedIn to find a job, then you might want to put your title in there. Why? So that a recruiter, when they're looking for a specific title, they then are able to say, "Oh, okay, well, you are the COO of this organization. We're actually looking for a COO for our organization. So thank you for making it easy for us to find you." Okay? But if you're going to build a business, you should use the headline to promote the value that you bring to the marketplace. Why? Because there are people who are looking for solutions and not titles. There are people that are looking for results and not titles. Yeah, just because you're the president and CEO of your firm doesn't mean you're making money.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to promote that. So that's number three. Number four is your about section. And in your about section, I love your about section. I had a chance to look at your profile. Obviously, we've been connected, but before we came, I was looking at your profile. I like how you have it set up, right? Because what you're doing is you're breaking down the key areas that you want the marketplace to know about you. And if people truly read it, it allows for you to speak to them, right? Your LinkedIn profile speaks for you before they speak to you. And if they
Yeah.
were smart, they'd read that, so that if they get on a call with you, it's not just about buy my product, buy my service, but it's like, "Oh, I understand that you're a fractional CEO and that you focus on operations. Oh, I love the fact that you're into, working with different events and things of that nature," right? So now you sitting there smiling like you're doing now. You're like, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you did your homework, huh? Okay, cool." And that lowers the level of skepticism
Yeah.
that many people have when they're dealing with new people, right? So being strategic, if you want the marketplace to be warm to you, then you want to be warm to the marketplace. So making sure your about section has the information that allows for your profile to speak for you before people speak to you. And then lastly is your experience, making sure that your experience highlights the results and impact that you brought to the marketplace when you served in that particular position. The challenge for most people when they get on LinkedIn, they think LinkedIn is a resume. And a
Mm.
resume is a good description, because what is the purpose of a resume? To get you an interview. It's a marketing tool. Okay? So, yes, LinkedIn is similar to a resume, but what you don't want to do is to focus on your task. Nobody cares about task. If I'm looking for someone that's going to help me to generate seven figures. I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile to see, did they help another organization develop six figures?
Mm.
And so when I approach them and talk to them about ways we can collaborate, I can say, Jesse, I noticed that you work with a number of organizations to help them generate six figures. I'd like to talk to you about coming and working with my organization to do the same thing. Why? Because that promotes results and impact. It makes it easy for you to attract the right people. There's a gentleman named Marquell Russell. And one of the things that he did was he and his partners have helped literally hundreds of coaches to generate billions of dollars in revenue. But one of the things he says is that great marketing, it allows for you not to have to sell.
Mm.
So if your marketing is on point and does everything it's supposed to do, when you get on the phone with somebody, you don't have to haggle them.
Yeah.
They're gonna tell you, listen, I like what I see. When can we get started? And
And
so
you know,
those are the five components that I would recommend that people have.
and you know that the truth is like if you have to sit here and talk someone into it, they're not a good fit anyway.
They're not a good
You,
fit into it.
you know,
No.
so they should be able to, like, by you showing up powerfully the way that you're intending to show up on whichever platform,
Hmm.
that should be supporting what you say you do and who
Yeah.
you are and how you
Yeah.
solve people problems. Like if
Yep.
we have to get on a call and it's complete cohort, like if I feel like I have to sell you, I already can tell like this is either going to be a nightmare or I'm
Hmm.
just not the right person, or it might just be something that's going on with that person personally to make
That's
that
right.
decision. So it's just their own skepticism,
Yep.
regardless. But I think it's super important for us to know that about
Hmm.
it. So I want to jump into what are some strategies that people can use with connecting to the right audience. So I have
Yeah.
like if I have all of my profile ready,
Hmm.
now what should I be doing to make sure that I'm actually connecting with who I want to connect with?
Yeah. So make sure that you have outreach strategy, right? Start with your warm connections. If you're on another platform like Instagram or Facebook and you notice that, you already have those connections, invite those people into your LinkedIn network, right? So you and I were connected on Instagram. Obviously, we connected on Clubhouse first, right? So then from Clubhouse, we then say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. So connect with the warm connections first before you start making cold connections. And then what you want to do is start tapping into your areas that are warm to you. So your alumni associations, your fraternity, your sorority, your professional associations, right? Start tapping into them. And then from there, begin to start doing cold outreaches. But even with that, you may not even have to do that because you can leverage your warm connections to make introductions on your behalf. So that would be a major strategy that I would recommend.
Do you think that the groups on LinkedIn are also beneficial? Because I know that I've seen it's ebbs and flows of it where people are highly uh, communicating and like they're actively using some groups, and then you find some groups that just are dead. Is that also a valid way to focus on getting connections?
It can be if the group is active. If it's not active, it's a waste of time.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a
awesome.
waste of time. Yep, yep, yep.
All right, I have one more question because we're getting close to the
Mhm.
30 minutes and we've had a lot
Yeah,
of comments and stuff on YouTube. So I'm happy
that's
that
awesome.
this has been very impactful for people.
Yeah, yeah.
So the last question I wanted to ask is what are some best practices for converting LinkedIn connections into clients? What would you
Yeah.
recommend?
So the best thing you can do is make sure you're posting your content consistently, so you're educating your ideal prospects. But do your best to convert the connection from an online conversation to an offline conversation. Invite them onto a call, a discovery call, so you can get to know them and build with them, and then put yourself in a position where you can ask the right questions that lead to the opportunities that they're looking for. That's
Awesome.
what I would recommend. Yeah.
Fantastic. So for anyone that
But
would want to,
I've gotta apologize. I've gotta make a beeline.
yeah,
I, a bio. I gotta do a bio. I apologize. This is very embarrassing, but I gotta. Let me. Are you able to
yeah,
pause?
yeah,
I'll be
yeah, go
right
ahead.
back. I apologize. I apologize. Keep talking to the people.
Alrighty. So for anyone that does have any questions while he returns back, please feel free to comment below. If you are nervous about actively using LinkedIn, I would love to hear what gets in the way of you actively using it. I know that certain size businesses, sometimes we lean more into using Instagram. And I feel that sometimes there's this fear about actually getting onto LinkedIn. And I would love to know, like, exactly what gets in the way for you actually using LinkedIn. I know in the beginning, I've probably been on LinkedIn now, I want to say maybe like 7 years or something of that nature. And most of my clients I connect with in the corporate space are all on LinkedIn. Not many are on Instagram. And how I share that on Instagram, usually someone else is managing it. That's what I find, even in my own type of business, is that typically the gatekeepers or someone that assists the person that would actually pay for my services, they're the ones that are managing their Instagram, where I can have direct communication with whom I'm wanting to connect with on LinkedIn. But I would love for you to comment and let me know, like, what gets in the way of you actually using LinkedIn, because I would love to hear what's going on. And in that way, he can chime in one more time before we wrap up today's conversation. But I hope this has been super helpful for y'all. No worries. So it's life, no worries. So for
Yeah.
anyone that wants to connect with you, what would you recommend is the best way for them to connect with you, to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to ybconnects.com. And on YB Connects, I actually offer a free masterclass that allows for them to understand the power of leveraging LinkedIn. So that's an opportunity for them to come to my ecosystem, ybconnects.com, learn more about me, take advantage of that free service. Obviously, LinkedIn, but what I would recommend is that you send a personalized note if you can. What I've discovered, even as the LinkedIn Locksmith, I'm still learning more about the platform. And I realized that if you have a free LinkedIn account, you can only send 5 personalized messages or notes a month.
I thought it was a
I
day.
think you can do it.
Oh,
No, it's a month. So, it's, for example, if I have a free service and I have if I have 10 people that I want to send a personalized note to with my invitation, right? And so it's with my invitation because I tell people, make sure you send a personalized note with every invitation you send out. And the reason why I was saying that was because when you have the pro account, right? You got the premium account, it's unlimited. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you should be doing that. Not thinking that not everybody has a premium account.
yeah.
So if you have a free service, you can only send a personalized note with to 5 people. And then after that, you just send a connection request. Now I don't like the just the connection request because it makes you sound like you're begging.
Hmm.
Right. So if I look at my email and I see someone has sent me a personalized, not personalized, but they send me a connection request, it's gonna come across and say, please add me to your network.
Hmm.
That's like you knocking on somebody's door and say, please let me in. Well, what's the first thing I'm gonna say? Who are you and what do you want? So the reason why you want to send a personalized note because you can answer that question before that person has to think it. Hi, my name is Rob YB Youngblood. I'm a professional business networking coach, and the purpose for my outreach is, right? And so now the person can read that, look at my profile, decide to let me in. And that's if
Yeah.
that's a cold connection. If it's something of this nature, you might say, hi, my name is Rob YB Youngblood. I just heard you do the interview with Jesse, and the purpose for my outreach is to establish a professional relationship. So you want to do that as a preemptive strike to lower skepticism and
Hmm.
increase interest in people wanting to connect with you. So I would say number one, connect with me, ybconnects.com, or on LinkedIn directly, send me a personalized note. And if you're unable to send me a personalized note, just know that I'm going to send you a message to say, what prompted you to invite me? Please remind me that you heard me here on Jesse's platform.
Awesome. Fantastic. Y'all, I hope that this has been super helpful for you. Definitely share it to some friends, because I know everyone sometimes can feel like they're so loyal to Instagram, but there's other ways to connect with people, and building up your community, your circle of influence is really, to me, the 2024 hack for the businesses that are going to thrive this year. We were all locked in the house for a couple of years, and now that people have to actively get out there and market their business and connect, it's getting a little tough for some individuals. So this is
Hmm.
why you want to get out there, talk to people, build up your circle of influence, share what you're up to and things of that nature. So I appreciate you again, Rob, for having this conversation and being a guest. And I hope that you have the best year ever. And thank you so very much.
My pleasure. You continue to keep up the great work, and I appreciate you greatly. Thank you.
You're welcome.